it's very, very dry out there, so I guess feed budgeting is very important.
Certainly, Rob. I mean, I think probably much of the South Island is under fairly dry conditions. I mean, the West Coast had plenty of rain, but down on the farm, I mean, we're coming to the crunch time. Temperatures are cooling, and obviously the level of growth we're getting is reducing really. So whatever winter feed or saved pasture that farmers have got, they need to treat it with basically a fair bit of care in terms of
just meter it out.
Metering it out, and very important that you do a feed budget. That's the first thing, and that you get an idea of how many kilograms of dry matter you've actually got in the field. So whether it's fodder beet or kale or winter brassica or whatever, or grass, please can't emphasise how important it is to do a dry matter assessment across the paddock. Easy enough to do, just a metre square, and weigh it, and you can use a simplistic calculation of the percentage of dry matter and get what it normally is, 15-20%, and get an idea of how many kilograms of feed you've got.
The other thing is very, very dry, so nitrate poisoning is right out there.
It is, Rob, if farmers have been pushing it along with nitrogen in the early mid-autumn. And of course, these cloudy days and pretty dry conditions, you're bang on. It's a recipe for disaster, and especially it doesn't matter what crop you've got, if you've pushed it along, you do have to watch nitrate. Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing fodder beet, for example, you're recommending that you give them some bulk beforehand?
Oh, look, transitioning, I mean, in all brassicas there's a transitioning phase. In fodder beet, it's even more important that you transition over probably a 2 to 2.5 week period. Start off very small, 1 to 2 kilos a day. Make sure before you put the animals in there they've actually got a level of gut fill, so they've had silage or hay, and then you can put them in, and slowly they will take to the crop. And basically what that's doing, you can slowly increase it after every sort of couple of days, is that the rumen is effectively adjusting to the new feed. And so as time goes along, they'll effectively adjust to the new feed, and you'll be fine after a couple of weeks. I mean, I'm busy doing it at home myself. We've got the first mob of Angus calves on at the moment, and they're just getting it very, very carefully, very quietly, and you won't see any problems. So it's quite a process.
Has the velvet leaf thing slowed down? Is it?
Well, I think from MPI's perspective, they've done a pretty sterling job, really, getting right around the country, inspecting all the paddocks. They've identified all the paddocks around New Zealand. So that phase is eased off. I think one of the key things that they're talking about at the moment is obviously when you're grazing, or you've got, like, dairy farmers are taking cows onto somebody else's farm to graze it, and that paddock's been identified as having had velvet leaf. Before you remove the animals, they're talking about giving them a standoff period to allow that seed to pass through the animal,
right,
so that it's not transferred from one farm to a jolly another farm. And that's a pretty important area, because a lot of spreading of these noxious or unwanted weeds is via the animal.
Is it going to affect seed supply for next year?
Well, I mean, from the perspective of phytosanitary and introducing seed of the genus Beta, which is beet, all seed lots are going to be inspected, and they're going to have to go through a pretty rigorous inspection process at the port of entry.
Even those that are coated?
And the coated especially. So, likely to slow down the process, but I think individual companies are working obviously with MPI to make sure that there will be a process clearly in place. I don't think it's going to stop the availability of seed, certainly not. There will be seed available. Maybe some of those lines that of seed that have been used will be a problem, but for most of the varieties it shouldn't be an issue.
Got it. Now I guess you're planning for spring.
Well, hey, we're sort of getting through May, And we've got to get through winter yet. But look, seriously, a lot of farmers are now already talking about spring, and they're talking about ordering their seed supplies, especially for like the beet. In the early days, a lot of the beet was already effectively signed up in May. So there's quite a lot of advanced planning required, and I think farmers do need to think seriously about what are their requirements going to be for the next spring, summer. I mean, the forecast is talking about, I think, for the East Coast of both islands, a fairly wet spring and wet summer. Now, hey, whether that's true or not, we'll wait and see.
We don't have one of those crystal ball things, do we?
No, we will just have to wait and see. But I mean, it's very dry at the moment, and you know, stock are under a level of pressure, so we've just got to watch them pretty carefully.
And just keep an eye on those budgets.
Yeah, and I mean financially, I mean a lot of farmers are under the pump too, and I mean you know, there's been grazing options that have been lost as a consequence of dairy, and obviously other situations. So it's time for being, you know, pretty careful and resilient.
Just keep it really tight.
Just focus
Warwick,
on
thank you very much indeed.